changes are coming to driver qualifications, and they're going into effect this month. Let's talk about what's going on and what you can do to prepare so your fleet's ready for enforcement landing on the 25th. So on April 28th, President Trump issued an executive order calling for the FMCSA to reestablish English language proficiency guidelines and to make sure that that's now considered an out-of-service violation. That's something that had been softened under the Obama administration, but this call is to put it back into effect. In May, the FMCSA issued new guidance on enforcement of this provision. So effective June 25th, coming up very soon, CBSA will be adding English language proficiency to the official out-of-service criteria for North America. So while it's already being inspected and considered roadside, it will be an out-of-service violation on the 25th. So you need to make sure that the drivers in your fleet are aware, and you need to make sure that the drivers in your fleet are able to sufficiently speak English in order to operate. Otherwise, you're going to risk safety scores going down from violations. You're going to risk the incurred cost of having to fly someone out to retrieve the truck and the driver, and just the pain in the neck that comes with all of that. So we have prepared a couple of assessments that are going to help you evaluate your fleet today, and then also that can be implemented into your ongoing recruitment or pre-orientation process to make sure you're screening drivers adequately and documenting it. So I'm going to just very quickly share screen and walk you through what we have. Now, I want to first say that what we've developed a couple of tools. The first tool is a workflow checklist assessment for English language proficiency. And what it does is it follows the guidance the way it's going to be enforced. Roadside, when an officer is interacting with a driver, first they're going to evaluate in a conversation whether they can sufficiently speak English. And then if that's a question, or if the driver fails that, they're going to administer a road sign test. So first conversation, then road sign. So we've developed this assessment so that your recruiter or trainer or other designated company representative can go through first the conversational piece with drivers, and then administer the road sign test. There are a couple of other tools we've developed that I'll run into with you in just a moment, but for right now, let's go ahead and jump in and let me share what we've developed, because we've been hard at work on a tool that I think is really going to make things easy for you implementing day one as well as ongoing as part of your operations. So this is an example. We're in a beta test environment here of the Infinity platform with a new section called Digital Checklist. And Digital Checklist has a number of different functionality, tools, and capabilities, and tons of documentation and notification. And we're going to share more about that coming soon. But this deadline in place, we thought this is the best way to lift up. So we are not only kind of giving you a peek behind the curtain at a new product, but also rolling it out for this very important enforcement date. So what we have here are a couple of things, because I've teed up some examples, but what we have are a 3-step assessment. The first step is meant to be the driver interview. Again, this is in lockstep with the way the regulation will be enforced. And step 1 driver interview is meant to be conducted by a company representative. It's a conversation between the recruiter or the trainer and the driver. So you can gauge whether they can speak English well enough to interact with an officer roadside. So I'm going to start this assessment so we can see what this looks like. Now, first and foremost, we love video-based training, micro-learning. So we have a quick 1:45-second video that talks about what's happening, the timeline for implementation, and what's changing in this driver qualification enforcement. So you can watch this video with the driver just to make sure that they're aware. As always, you can also assign this in your traditional learning management system classroom. So this is available in the content, and you can search it and assign it to all drivers if you would like, or all company employees even. But you can watch it here in this setting. And again, this is a live learning setting. We quickly just define that this relates to driver qualifications in CFR 391.11, and that it will go into effect as an out-of-service criteria. We're posing a scenario here. Now, you may see a slightly version of this because we are still just putting the final polishes on this. What we have right here are instructions to the company representative that they are to evaluate in this conversation. And we also want to be sure to remind the driver, no interpretation tools are allowed. That's very clear in the guidance from FMCSA. They won't be able to use interpretation apps to help them roadside when they're trying to communicate. So they just have to be able to do it on their own. So that's important. Remember that when you're assessing. We are listing a scenario in case you would like to use this specific scenario with drivers, because we need to kind of set the scene and give them something to respond to. We're also adding, you'll see it very soon, a quick free response box. So if you find that this scenario is not fitting for the way you operate, you want to pose your own scenario, we'll have a free response box where the trainer or the company representative can document what scenario they posed for the driver, so give you a little bit more flexibility. But if you don't want to do your own, you can always rely on this one that talks about traveling from Atlanta to Fort Worth and, some tire tread issues, and kind of sets the scene for what is following as a typical interaction with an enforcement officer. Now, I just want to say here that we got our hands on an unredacted version of the FMCSA guidelines. So these questions are directly from the unredacted version. These are the questions that are provided for enforcement. It doesn't mean that enforcement can't ask other questions, but this is straight from official documentation that we've received. So just bear that in mind. There are any number of questions that you, the company, could ask to gauge proficiency in English. We decided to go with what we see issued from FMCSA. And I think that's enough, preliminary exposition here. We can just go right through. So as the trainer is asking these questions and having the conversation with the driver, the trainer or company representative is going to determine whether the driver can sufficiently speak English, and that would be a pass, or whether they're having trouble, and that would be a fail. What we don't see in the official guidance from FMCSA is what it means to pass or fail. How many questions do they get wrong? How many times can they stumble over their language before an officer needs to flag them for step 2? So because there's no guidance, we're going to leave that to the discretion of you, your company, whatever your company policy is on what you choose to define as proficient or not. But the trainer or the recruiter is going to go through, have this conversation with the driver, ask these questions, and determine whether they pass or fail. And we're going to fill these out. As you can see, you have to fill it out. It is a required field. So no skipping questions accidentally. And then here, we're going to have the company representative attest that the driver can sufficiently speak English to pass step 1 of the English language proficiency evaluation with either a yes or a no. We're going to say yes, the conversation went well. We're also going to leave room for a signature. Now, I'm doing this on the computer, so I'm doing it with my little mouse here. You can also do it with your finger if you're doing it on the app or a tablet right there in the classroom or the orientation room. We're going to add a date. And then what we're going to do is we're going to assign the next step, which is step 2. It's the road sign test, and that's step 2 in the enforcement as well. That's going to be assigned to the driver. So here I'm going to select, let's give it to Jay Womack here, and we're going to select a date. And then we're going to hit submit, and it passes this off to Jay. Jay won't see the responses from the first one, but he will when he logs into his classroom. Just like we are here, he'll see the step 2 in his assigned list. So I have already, just to speed things up, assigned myself step 2 so that we can jump right in. And I went ahead and filled out the questions because there are something like 49 or 53 road sign questions that the driver will need to be able to understand. Might need to be able to understand. Again, this section comes from the unredacted version of the FMCSA guidance. So there were a many number of signs on the unredacted version. We chose to list all of the ones that were represented, plus a couple of others that are commonly experienced for drivers out on the road, because we don't want to just meet the regulation. We also want to make sure the drivers are safe doing their job. So we have many, many questions here. This is, again, assigned to the driver. The driver can either complete it there live next to the trainer, or they can do it on their own time and then submit it. I went ahead and scrolled through and filled out all of the answers to the questions, but as you can see, you have, a visual of different signs and then questions that accompany them, which indicates a minimum speed. Of course, it's going to be B here. And again, this is pulled from the guidance that FMCSA issued, and there are a number of them. There are even some that relate to pedestrians and school zones, of course, grade and runoff. And then down further, we also have some more traditional construction signage, and even digital signage. So digital signs are always tricky because there can be any number of words up on a digital sign. So we selected a number of different options, some from the FMCSA guidance, some from other DOT documentation that we've seen. So again, you can go through and you can answer these questions. The driver could, I mean. And then what the driver's going to do is assign this back to the trainer or recruiter. So in this case, we're going to send this over to Jay, who's right now I'm pretending to be the driver or trainer, and we're going to set a due date. And there we go. We submit. Now, that was, again, the driver completing the roadside section. So once the driver has completed that and hit submit, step 3 is going to show up in the trainer or the company representative, whoever they assigned it to, in their digital checklist assigned list. So I went ahead and set this up again so we could move quickly here. This is, as you see, step 3, the final evaluation. So in this step, the trainer or recruiter or company representative is first going to review step 2, the highway traffic signs, by clicking this yellow eyeball here, and then attest whether the driver can sufficiently understand traffic signage to pass step 2 of the evaluation. So let's click this eyeball and preview what the previous person submitted. It looks like the driver submitted things. You can see the answer response here, a little check, and scroll right through. We will have an answer key available for administrators. We don't want that to be used as a cheat sheet for drivers filling it out. But again, the company representative is going to go through and determine, based on company policy, what we want to do on passing the driver, whether they can speak sufficiently or not based on company policy. So we're going to say yes. And again, I'm going to sign off right here. And we're also going to have a spot where the driver could sign off. So we can say, let's say Jay was filling it out and I just don't even know that that looks like Jay's signature, but there you go. Jay would come and sign off on this. And let's set a date. Today is the date that we filled this out. And so let's hit submit. And now we have all 3 steps documented. Now, I'm going to stop sharing and just talk to you a bit more about the other tools that we have. So this workflow, again, is in lockstep with the regulation. Starts with a conversation piece. That's a live, synchronous learning moment or training moment, live evaluation. Then it includes step 2 of the roadside interaction, which is road signs, and then a final attestation. So you have the documentation that, whoever the company representative is signs off on this. So that's the comprehensive way to evaluate your drivers. Makes a lot of sense as part of the recruitment process or the pre-orientation process as you bring on new drivers. But we are all trying to meet the regulation for day 1 for June 25th. So we've heard, as we've shared this with some of our clients who help us beta test, we've heard that some of them, particularly the ones with hundreds or thousands of drivers, that they need a way to quickly assess basically weed out, quickly assess who they need to put through this more robust evaluation. So we've also created the road sign step, which is step 2. We've created that as an assignable asset in your LMS. All of these things live in the same Infinity platform, right? So the way you traditionally assign a video or a PDF or a PowerPoint, you can now also assign what's called a quiz only assignment with these road signs. And so it shows, just like it does in the assessment, it shows the picture and then it gives you an answer option. And that particular quiz, like all of the quizzes in Infinity, can be graded. So That company, for example, with I think 2,500 drivers, is planning to assign the quiz only to all of their drivers. They're going to set whatever passing score that they think is appropriate for their company. They're going to assign it to everyone. And anyone who fails that quiz is then going to be put through the more robust evaluation process that starts with the conversation and then goes back through the road sign. So that's one way to tackle it, to make sure that you're ready to go for June 25th. And then I will also say that that quiz only road sign assignment can also be a fantastic tool to either prepare new drivers, give them a chance to kind of study and test before the evaluation, or it can be used as a remedial tool, a corrective action tool. So if you go through, the full 3-step evaluation as part of recruitment or pre-orientation, and they stumble, they fail, you could then assign the road sign only quiz to them to do additional study. So I will also caution Infinity, we are not experts in teaching language, so that request has come in a number of times. Unfortunately, we just don't have that expertise, so we want to leave that to the experts. But these two tools are going to be a really helpful way to prepare for the 25th, and then also make sure that as you are hiring new drivers ongoing, you can evaluate and prepare them for the road. A couple of other quick things, that video, don't forget that the video that was in the first step of the digital checklist is also available in the LMS to be assigned. So you can certainly assign that right now to everyone, just to make sure that they're aware of the changes and make sure they're aware of the regulation. It would be a very smart thing to do. And then another thing, remember your announcements page can be customized to include a flyer or an announcement to let all of the drivers know that this deadline is coming. It's another good place to remind them about the upcoming medical certification changes that are happening, also taking place end of June. So we're working on a flyer. We'll have that available to you any minute now, and you can put that up on your announcements page. Certainly you can always email it out, but that announcements page is a great spot to make sure everyone has seen it. And I think with that covers it. We're really making sure that y'all can meet the regulations and make sure you're ready, because enforcement is coming June 25th. Get ready and let your drivers know.